Hi, this is Julie Campbell for Two Peas in a Bucket, and thank you for joining me for this month's Trendy Trios class. This month at Two Peas, we're focusing on die cuts and shapes, so I thought it would be fun to focus on one of my favorite trendy shapes, which is the triangle. These are just some different inspiration pieces that I found while searching through Pinterest, and I wanted to show you how different the simple shape of a triangle can look if you change the color or layer or stack the image. These are the three cards that we will be making today, and we have a lot to do, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is the first card that we'll be creating. This is part of the new collection by Maggie Holmes and Crate Paper, and it's the Open Album Ephemera. So basically, all of these pieces are made to go with one of Maggie's albums. But as a card maker, I love all these different elements because they are perfect for creating a focal point. And this is the piece that we're going to be using on the card today. It's a really pretty hot pink doily, and it has triangle die cuts around the center. To create the background of the card, I'm using some pattern paper. This is from the new Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm collection, and this pattern paper is called Pretty Painterly. So I'm going to select this yellow image at the top, and as you can see, it looks like it has almost like a dry brushed paint feeling on it, so it gives it a lot of texture. I'm going to go ahead and adhere the yellow pattern paper onto the card base. And you can see that this doily really pops off with that yellow background. These are some chipboard pieces that are also in the Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm collection. And I'm just going to spread that out so you can kind of see what's included in this set. This is the more neutral set, and then there's one that's a little bit more colorful. So I'm going to use this die cut circle that says hello because I think it'll fit really nicely in the middle of the doily. So now that I have that in place, I'm just kind of eyeballing it on my card and just taking a look to see where it would fit best. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this doily onto the card front. And as you can see, there's going to be some overlapping. And once I get everything adhered in place, then I'll just take this panel over to my paper trimmer and then trim off the side and bottom. So this is what the card looks like after it's been trimmed. This is one of my very favorite products from this CHA release, and it's by Maggie Holmes. It's a 12 by 12 strip of washi tape. So it's really neat because you can use it just as you would regular washi tape and then just cut the strips. Or you can die cut and create shapes using the entire piece, so you could have a variety of different shapes on one die cut. I really liked this little piece because even though it started out looking like a diamond, when you cut it in half, then it creates a triangular border. And since washi tape is transparent, I think it adds a neat detail because you can still see the really pretty doily that's underneath. These are some different wood veneer pieces from Studio Calico. The larger triangles are from the Darling Deer collection, and then the tiny triangle is from the Sundrifter collection. So I want to add a little bit of design and color to this large triangle, so I'm bringing back that strip of washi tape and then just trimming a section that should fit onto this veneer piece. So I'll just peel the backing off and place that over the triangle. And then I'll just need to trim the edges and get everything looking a little bit more crisp. I also like taking either a nail file or I have a little craft file and just go across each of the edges, and it just makes sure that everything is perfectly aligned and it looks like this triangle was originally made to have this pattern on it because the edges are so perfect now. So I'm going to add this bit of color right here, and now I want to add some color to this outlined triangle. So I'm taking some blue chalk ink and I want to give it a little bit of an ombre feel, so I'm adding a little bit more ink to one end and a little bit less to the other, so it kind of fades as it goes along. So now that I've placed everything and I've got a pretty good idea of where I want things, I'm just going to go ahead and secure it onto my card. And my favorite way to adhere wood veneer, especially if it's a larger piece like this, is just to use my hot glue gun. You can also use glue dots or some liquid adhesive works well too. But just for the sake of time, I'm going to just use my hot glue. So I'm going to adhere this little tiny triangle. I love these little tiny shapes because they act almost as confetti. They just add a little bit of design without taking up too much space. And these are some enamel dots. I'm just going to add a little enamel dot onto that third triangle to give it some color and design. After looking at my card, I feel like it still needs a little something, so I'm going to use some of this silver metallic twine. It's got a natural base color, but then the silver color is just kind of twisted in, so it just kind of gives a little pop of sheen and a little pop of color, but it is mainly neutral. So I'm just going to try to slide that in place, and then I'll wrap and tie that around my card. The final step is just to trim the ends of my twine here, and then our first card is finished. For our second card, we're going to begin with a die cut from Glitz Designs. It's from their new Color Me Happy collection, and these are the whatnots, and I just wanted to go through this pack and just kind of show you what is included. I was just pleasantly surprised to see such large, just really neat die cuts that are included in this collection. And actually a lot of these I think would be pretty just to frame them and just use them, just display them as they are, because they just have such a neat design. And they're basically a lightweight cardstock, and you can use them to embellish your layouts or your cards, of course. I think this one would actually make a nice bookmark. But the one that we're going to be focusing on is this die cut elephant that has the triangle pattern already embedded into it. These are some of the tags from the new Dear Lizzie collection. So these are all from the Lucky Charm line. And once again, I'm just going to flip through these so you can kind of see what's included. So as you can see, there's some really neat different watercolors and anchors, and of course there's that little triangle pattern again. And we are just going to be using this pretty basic tag, but it's The color that's at the top actually matches perfectly with one of the triangle colors found in the elephant. This piece of pattern paper is actually the same paper that we used earlier, the Pretty Painterly. It's just another one of the panels that's a more of a neutral. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to the card base. And I wanted to go with something pretty neutral so that the elephant and the triangles found on the elephant would really pop off the front of the card. Next, we're going to adhere the tag. So I want to place the elephant about right here, but as you can see, that word awesome, it gets covered up and it just doesn't look very good. It doesn't work with our design. So I'm looking for a pattern paper that I could use to cover that area up. This is the new 6x6 paper pad called Snippets. It's by Studio Calico and it just has some really nice basic patterns and colors. So I do like that coral paper that I found right here. It actually coordinates with the tag as well as the elephant. So I went ahead and just trimmed a small section, just a large enough area that would cover up the word that's on the tag. So I'm just going to place that over the word and then extend that to the side of the card. This is also going to work as a grounding element for the elephant so that it just looks like it's has a better design element and everything looks like it's a little bit more secure and contained. So as you can see now, the elephant fits perfectly in that area. We need to work on the sentiment, and these are some little alphabets. They are from Studio Calico. They're wood veneer, and I've pulled out the letters that say, "Sorry, I forgot," which I think works really well with the elephant image. This is just some, it's non-permanent dot adhesive, and I'm using that just to get my letters in place. And I like that it's not permanent because it can easily be wiped off in the areas that aren't covered. And if I need to move my letters around, the adhesive isn't so strong that it's just actually really easy to maneuver everything and switch things if needed. So now I have all of my letters in place and I want to take my card over to my sewing machine and just make a straight line and stitch those wood veneer letters in place. So this is what it looks like once I've finished with my machine stitching. I thought it would be fun to tie a little piece of string around the nose of the elephant. Basically, it's um, mimicking as if you would tie a piece of string around your finger to remember something, but since this little elephant doesn't really have fingers, I thought his trunk would work instead. So this is just just some plain white twine, and I'm just kind of working that and getting it to the size that I'd like, and then I'm just needing to trim those ends. I want my elephant to really pop off the front of my card, so I'm adding some foam adhesive to the back. And then putting it in place. After looking at my card, at this point I thought I was finished, but I noticed that the tag looked a little bare, so I decided to add the same piece of white twine to the hole that was on that tag, as you can see in this picture. Just kind of brings everything together. This is our final card, and to begin with, I'm cutting a piece of pattern paper. This is also from the Lucky Charm Dear Lizzie collection, and this is called Collector. it is similar to the other papers we've used because it looks like there's maybe some dry brushing of paint along the edges, and I really like the texture. This is a new stencil from Prima, and I'm taking some of my Mr. Yui Shine, and I'm going to go ahead and mist this triangle mask and just give the pattern paper a little bit of sheen. So when I remove my mask, you can see we now have a silvery, shiny, triangular pattern. For our second piece of paper, I'm going to select a piece of chalkboard looking paper. It's also from Glitz Design. It's from their Uncharted Waters collection. So I'm using this piece of pattern paper and then just trimming a small square. It's actually 3.5 inches square. And I'm wanting to mimic the trend that we used last month, which is the Polaroid. So I'm going to place it like this onto the red pattern paper. But I thought that the edges looked a little bit pale, so I'm taking a black chalk ink and just going along the edges. It just makes the pattern paper pop just a little bit more and gives it a little bit more definition. So now that that's done, I need to look for some additional pattern paper, and this is from Studio Calico. It's from their new Sundrifter collection, and in this collection there are several different triangles to choose from, and I've decided to use the black and neutral and the red and neutral, and the red is kind of an orangish tone. And I like, there's just a really small hint of a triangular pattern, and it's just going to really play up our theme. So I'm going to be bringing back the wood veneer that we used earlier, the large and the small triangles. And one of the best ways, or maybe the easiest way to kind of begin using triangles might be to create a banner using this shape. So I've just cut some different triangles out of the pattern paper that we selected, and I'm using some glossy accents as my adhesive and just placing that onto the wood veneer and adhering the pattern paper to it. It takes about 5 minutes to dry, and then I like to sand the edges just a little bit just to make sure they're nice and straight. So I'm just going to speed this up so that you can kind of quickly see how I did this. Right now I'm just eyeballing everything before I adhere it. And I'm using my hot glue gun again and just securing everything in place. So I like this design because we've got the larger triangles that's in the red pattern paper, and then we've got these little tiny triangles that's in our embellishment. So it really is making the most of this trend. I'm piercing some holes so that I can create a more realistic looking banner, and I'm just threading some embroidery floss back and forth through my pattern paper, and then I'm securing the ends with a little bit of washi tape. So I'm just finishing my second banner here. And now I can adhere this panel onto the red pattern paper. This is a new stamp set that's also from Studio Calico. They've got quite a few items in their new collections that have the triangle theme, and I want to use one of the triangular border pieces to add a little bit of a design element onto the card. So I'm just going to pick that stamp up with my acrylic block and then using some pigment or chalk ink, stamp that image at the bottom of the chalkboard pattern paper. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I mask the red frame so that the border doesn't extend into an area that I don't want it to. So I'm just using a little tiny post-it note and putting that over the area to protect it. And as you can see, this really looks great with the chalkboard effect. These are some rub-ons. They are also from the Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm collection. There's the back side. I love rub-ons. I think they're so fun to use. Whenever I use them, I always like to trim the image out because I don't want to accidentally transfer something, maybe like an adjacent image. So I just trim exactly what I need. It makes it a little bit easier. So I'm using this little horse image. It's got a little bit of a polka dot design pattern throughout. I'm just placing it where we had stamped that triangular border. And as you can see, that stamp really grounds this horse image as well. So I'm using a bone folder and just going over each section. You just want to take your time, make sure that you have a flat surface underneath, and then whenever you do remove your rub-on, just do it slowly because sometimes you might have not pressed as hard in one area and it hasn't transferred yet. So you just take it slowly and just lift it carefully. You might need to do a little bit more transferring as you go. Rub-ons are so nice because they're just really bold and you can put them on any surface. Now we are going to use a sentiment stamp. This is also from Studio Calico. This is from their Miss You So Much set that's brand new. So this stamp says "You're awesome," and I really like the handwritten font. It's just different than anything that I've seen before. So I'll just pick that stamp up, and I like to pick it up that way it keeps things nice and straight. And then I also like to stamp onto a surface that I know has a little bit of a give to it. It makes a nicer impression. So I'm using my black VersaFine ink pad. That's my go-to black ink pad. Seems to give me the best results. And then I'm just finding the best placement for that sentiment. The final step is just to adhere the card front onto a card base. And that wraps up this month's Trendy Trio class lesson. I hope you've enjoyed seeing some different ways to incorporate triangles in your projects. Join me on the first of every month where we will focus on a new trend. You can find all of the supplies that I used for my projects at www.2peasinabucket.com. Thank you so much for watching.